Noticing the heavy police presence and realizing she was being pursued, Delilah knew the end was near. Delilah was shocked from behind. Because she died in the water, her dark spirit lingered, waiting to return and wreak havoc again through a different body. A fat woman emerges from the depths of the big river, her skin glistening under the moonlight. She looks around cautiously and begins to laugh. Her body starts to shimmer, and in an instant, she transforms into a beautiful young lady with enchanting eyes and a bewitching smile. They won't see this coming, she whispers to herself, her voice filled with malice. She walks away with a determined stride, her mind set on one thing: revenge. Before I dive into the story proper, please consider subscribing to this channel and turning on your bell notification icon so that you'll get notified about new videos. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for coming back. And if you're just stumbling upon this video for the very first time, you can check the description box or the icon above for the beginning of the video. Now, join me as we dive into another extremely intriguing story. Back in Agemo, life had slowly returned to normal after the mysterious event surrounding Delilah. Olalekan had become a local hero for his role in unmasking her dark secrets. The villagers felt a sense of relief, believing that the nightmare was over. Little did they know that the real terror was just beginning. Alhaji Danhairi, despite escaping Delilah's clutches, had been restless. He felt a sense of unease, a shudder of dread that he couldn't shake off. His wife Hannatu noticed his anxiety and tried to comfort him, but nothing seemed to work. One night, as he was driving back from a business meeting, he saw a figure standing by the side of the road. Slowing down, he realized it was a beautiful young woman, waving for help. Who could be out here at this hour, he thought, pulling over. As the woman approached, he felt an odd familiarity but couldn't place it. "Do you need help?" he asked. "Yes, please," the woman said, her voice like honey. "My car broke down and I need a ride to the next town." Alhaji Danhairi hesitated but then nodded. "Get in." As they drove, the woman smiled. "Thank you, Alhaji. My name is Laura." As Alhaji Danhairi and Laura drove, they discussed various topics ranging from sports to politics. Alhaji found Laura's company increasingly engaging. However, his phone rang and it was his wife, Hannatu. "Honey, what's keeping you? Are you close to the house now?" Hannatu's voice was filled with concern. Alhaji glanced at Laura, then replied, "I'll be home in the next 30 minutes. Laura frowned but quickly hid her anger behind a sweet smile. As Alhaji hung up, he sighed. "I need to get home to my wife. I can drop you off nearby." Laura's smile widened. "That's fine, Alhaji. Thank you for the ride." She stepped out of the car gracefully. As Alhaji drove away, Laura's smile turned sinister. "I must get you," she murmured, then vanished into thin air. Mr. Ayodeji was at the gym working out when a breathtaking lady walked past him. "Who is this?" he said to himself. Captivated by her beauty, he quickly wrapped up his session and headed to his car, keeping an eye on the gym's exit. When he saw her walking out, he got out of his car and approached her. "Hi, I'm Ayodeji," he said with a smile. "You look so beautiful. Do you usually walk out here?" She smiled and then replied, "Not really. I am new in town." "Oh, I see," he said, intrigued. "And you are?" She smiled again. "I am Lola." "Wow, what a beautiful name," he responded, looking impressed. "I have a meeting at 10 a.m., but can we meet again?" She nodded, took his phone and quickly dialed her number before walking away. Ayodeji watched her go, feeling a thrill of excitement. After he drove off, Lola smiled mysteriously and vanished into thin air. In an eerie-looking room, pictures of 5 men were pinned on the wall. Delilah, now using the alias Lola, laughed maniacally. "You all think you have destroyed me," she said to herself. "I will destroy you all one by one." She stabbed a knife onto one of the pictures, her eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. It was Mr. Ayodeji. "Hello, beautiful. I'm chilling at Anders Garden. Do you mind joining me?" Delilah smiled eerily and ended the call. Ayodeji was sitting at Anders Garden, a popular cafe, when he saw Lola approaching. She looked even more stunning. "Hey, glad you could make it," he said, standing up to greet her. "Thank you, Ayodeji," she said with a warm smile, taking a seat across from him. They chatted for hours, with Ayodeji becoming more enchanted by Lola's charm. As they spoke, she subtly began weaving a spell, ensuring that he was completely under her influence. Ayodeji and Lola were enjoying their drinks when Ayodeji's phone rang. It was his wife, Adire. "Hey honey, just checking up on you. Are you still at the meeting?" Ayodeji hesitated, glancing at Lola. Yes. Just wrapping up," he lied. Lola's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she realized another target was falling into her trap. After the call, she leaned closer to Ayodeji. "Let's take a walk," she suggested. As they walked through the garden, Lola led Ayodeji to a secluded spot. Her demeanor changed, and the air around them grew colder. Ayodeji felt a shiver run down his spine, but he couldn't pull away from her captivating gaze. "Do you believe in fate, Ayodeji?" she whispered, her voice almost hypnotic. "I guess so," he replied, feeling a strange sense of unease. "Good," she said, her eyes flashing with a sinister light. "Your fate is now sealed." The siren of an emergency ambulance bled through Anders Garden, making everyone wonder what was going on. Mr. Ayodeji was found on the ground by one of the workers, who raised an alarm. "I pray he makes it alive," one lady exclaimed. That evening, the news headlines carried the tragic story. The DPO of Agemo police station had been confirmed dead. Everyone at the police station cried out in shock. He was a good man," a police officer murmured. Back in her room, Delilah laughed evilly. "One man gone, 4 more to go." She continued laughing until she vanished into thin air. Alhaji Umar Diko had just returned from mosque after Friday prayers. Feeling tired, he decided to rest and not to return to work. Instead, he stopped over at Huraira's food joint for a meal. As he was enjoying his yummy plate of tuwo and miyan karkashi, an extremely gorgeous lady walked past him. He almost looked away, but noticing that she was a Muslima, he became even more interested. He quickly finished his food and stepped out, patiently waiting for her. "Hello, pretty," he said as she stepped out, heading to her car.
Alhaji, ina wuni?"
she replied, smiling. "Ahap, kin yi sani?" he inquired.
Mana, kai ba Alhaji Umar Diko bane?"
she said, her eyes twinkling. "Ai shine," he said with delight. "So, since you know me, it will be easy to be friends with you. Ko ba haka bane?"
"Haka ne,"
she said, shyly without hesitation. Alhaji inquired about where she was headed. She told him that her car had broken down and that she had been calling her mechanic, but he wasn't picking up. He then asked her not to worry, promising to send down his boys to take care of the car. She smiled and thanked him. He then offered to take her somewhere nice to relax. "Meanwhile, what's your name, pretty? Since you know mine." "Sunana Rahila," she replied. "That's a beautiful name," he said, smiling as he drove off. It was already evening when they arrived at a guest inn. A key was immediately handed to Alhaji, as it seemed he was a regular customer. When they got to the guest room, Alhaji got comfortable and took off his babariga. Rahila, who is really Delilah in disguise, watched him closely, her eyes gleaming with malicious intent. As Alhaji relaxed, she made her move, stepping closer and letting her charm wash over him. "Alhaji, he must be very tired," she said softly, sitting beside him. "Yes, but being here with you makes it all worth it," he replied, mesmerized by her beauty. She leaned in, her lips almost touching his ear. "Do you believe in fate?" she whispered. Before he could respond, the room seemed to darken and a chill filled the air. Alhaji's eyes widened as he felt a sudden inexplicable fear. "Rahila, what's happening?" he asked, his voice trembling. She smiled, her eyes now cold and sinister. Your fate is sealed, Alhaji. Hours later, the news of Alhaji Umar Dikko's death spread like wildfire. His colleagues and every other person seemed to have heard but his wife, Sophia. Another shocking news rocks the city of Kano. The DPO of Kano police station was found dead in a guest room after checking in with an unidentified lady. His wife fainted upon hearing the news. What a shameful death. Alhaji Umar Dikko was a respected figure. His shameful death has left everyone in disbelief. Delilah, now in her room, marked a photo of Alhaji Umar Dikko with a red X. She laughed maniacally, the sound echoing in the dimly lit room. 2 men down, 3 to go. She spun around, her eyes gleaming with malice. You think you can escape this? You think you can destroy me? I will destroy you all, one by one. Mr. Bakare had just finished eating his meal when his phone rang. It was an urgent call instructing him to quickly report to number 5 Fushishi Road. Isn't that Mr. Sani's house? He murmured to himself. Feeling a sudden chill, he quickly left his house. Worry etched on his face. When he arrived at Mr. Sani's house, a sense of dread washed over him. He saw a small group of people gathered outside, their faces a mix of shock and sorrow. As he pushed through the crowd, he heard whispers about Sani's tragic fate. Mr. Bakare entered the house, hearts pounding. In the bedroom, he found his friend, Mr. Sani, lifeless in his bathtub. The scene was surreal. His friend's usually vibrant face now cold and still. Mr. Sani, unmarried but dedicated to his work, was supposed to be at his office. When he didn't leave the house since Sunday morning, his concerned neighbors decided to check on him, only to discover this heartbreaking sight. The police arrived shortly after, sealing off the area and beginning their investigation. Mr. Bakare, still in shock, gave his statement, explaining how he had been called to the scene. The officers questioned the neighbors and searched the house for clues, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Yet, a nagging feeling in Mr. Bakare's mind told him this was no ordinary death. As he stood outside, he heard a faint, eerie laughter echoing in the distance. He looked around but saw nothing unusual. The laugh reminded him of a haunting voice he had heard in his dreams recently, a voice that sent shivers down his spine. Bakare couldn't shake off the feeling that Mr. Sani's death was connected to something much bigger. He spent days poring over news articles, police reports, and any information he could find about the recent mysterious deaths. Slowly, a chilling pattern emerged. All the men who had died under strange circumstances were police officers involved in the case of Delilah. He realized that Mr. Ayodeji, the DPO of Agemo, had declared Delilah wanted and transferred her case to the Kano police. Alhaji Umar, the DPO of Kano police station, had given the order for her to be brought in dead or alive. Mr. Sani was one of the men who shot at her. This connection was too strong to be a coincidence. Bakare knew he needed help. He reached out to Olalekan, who had experienced a similar eerie encounter with Delilah. Together, they pieced the puzzle, their fear growing with each revelation. Bakare and Olalekan sat in Bakare's living room, their faces pale and drawn. It looks like either one of us is next, Olalekan said, his voice barely above a whisper. They both stared at the wall where they had pinned photos and notes connecting the dots of Delilah's revenge. We need to brace ourselves for the unknown, Bakare replied. We can't let her take us by surprise. Olalekan nodded, determination replacing the fear in his eyes. We need to warn the others and prepare a plan to stop her. They quickly contacted the police, explaining the situation and urging them to be vigilant. The police force was on high alert, but the sense of dread was palpable. Bakare and Olalekan decided to stick together, believing there was strength in numbers. One evening, while they were going over their notes, Olalekan's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I see you. You were next. The message was accompanied by a photo of them taken through the window of Bakare's house. They both froze, their blood running cold. If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more stories of this sort from this channel, please consider subscribing, not forgetting to turn on the bell notification icon so that when next another interesting story is being posted, you will be the first to know about it. You can also check out these videos here. I promise you won't be disappointed. Till we meet again in my next video, remain blessed.